Hey everyone, I'm Nathan, and today love is in the air. Why? Well, I was a guest over on the Drawfee channel, which is absolutely insane, and I can't believe I'm saying that out loud. But they had me do this challenge where we redrew our childhood art, and I had a ton of fun developing these two characters. Spoilers, I guess, for that video, but let's be honest, if you're watching this video, that's probably where you came from. These are the characters that I dusted off and redrew for the challenge. This is Bartholomew Bell, but everyone just calls him by his last name, Bell, because he doesn't look like a Bartholomew or a Bart or a Mew. And Ari, who doesn't have a last name, but I imagine it's some sort of elaborate title like Prince of the whatever desert that we are currently in, because I drew them in this epic high fantasy world, and I had such a good time. I was like, wow, I would love to see them in other universes. Like, what if they were in a sci-fi or a mystery? And that brings us to today's video, where I draw one couple in 4 different genres. My goal is to keep the core of these characters the same. Like, Belle is like a merchant inside the epic fantasy, so kind of keeping that through line there. And Ari is a warrior, but also a gentle giant. But as long as those kind of core of the characters are the same, everything else is pretty much on the table. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into the video. Genre 1, sci-fi, aka cyberpunk. If you're unfamiliar, cyberpunk is normally set in the not too distant future, where scientific advancements have changed society, but a lot of the old infrastructure, like corrupt systems, are still at play. My favorite movie that actually fits into this is Paprika by Satoshi Kon, and if you just casually watch that movie, you might actually not realize it's a sci-fi, but the basic plot is there is a sleep doctor who has this little device called the DC Mini, and she uses it to go into the dreams of her patients to kind of help them in a therapeutic sense. I love all the surrealist imagery that comes from the dreams, and so I'm kind of taking that as my inspiration for this piece, but with a little bit more cyberpunk edge runner in terms of aesthetics. Like, I want people to be a little more teched out, I guess you could say. In this world, Bell has a cybernetic eye, and he is a projectionist, which basically means that he can use his eye as like a camera or as a projector for holograms. And I think what a projectionist does is people pay Bell in order to like project them to fulfill their fantasies, like going through the motions of a really hard conversation they have to have with a family member, or to like go to a little kid's birthday party and have all their favorite princesses show up and maybe their favorite boy band. And it would be much cheaper just to hire one projectionist than all of the people you would actually need to do those performances. And then one day Bell is in the wrong place at the wrong time, and he witnesses a murder. And this is really bad because the person who did this crime is the son of a prominent mafia boss, and I imagine this character is like a total nepo baby and really slimy and just not a good person, but he's supposed to inherit the family business one day. So his father hires a hitman assassin to take out this one eyewitness in the crime. And guess who that assassin is? That's right, it's Ari. We're doing enemies to lovers. In this world, Ari has been hired to literally murder Bell, but it goes so much farther than that because, like, not only is there a witness, there's literally a recording inside Bell's cybernetic eyes. So it's not just murder, it's like you have to destroy the hardware until it is unrecognizable or wipe the software, one of the two. So this is like total annihilation. Yeah, but obviously that's not gonna happen because they're gonna fall in love, but then the stakes are only gonna get raised higher because, you know, you can't just be an assassin and not murder the person that there's a hit on. So in the scene that I'm illustrating, Ari has pinned Bell to the ground of like this alley, and in the altercation, Bell projects the crime that he witnessed, and I just thought this was a really good way to sort of explore how visually it would look like seeing the projections coming out of Bell's eye. I was actually really proud with how that worked out, and yeah, this was a good excuse to have Ari be shirtless and give him cybernetic arms and pecs, because, I don't know, they looked cool, and they probably make him super strong or something. I don't know, seems useful. And also, Eagle Eye viewers might notice that the victim in the hologram is actually a direct reference to Paprika. Yeah, there was a figure in that movie that was also killed, and so I wanted to give a little homage in that area. I actually had a little bit of trouble designing the other person in the hologram. He looked a little too heroic, and so I really had to channel very big Green Gang from the Powerpuff Girls energy just to make him look more snake-like, to kind of get across, no, we're not rooting for this person. He's a bad guy. So instead of drawing him perfectly straight, I kind of gave him this big, exaggerated line of action curve. I've also just never drawn holograms before, but I found that just putting some static overlay over them really helped make them read as holograms. So I'm happy with that success. And I also love this background. I had a lot of fun adding just textures on textures on textures to sort of make it feel like this gritty alley, but then these huge swaths of yellow that are in the far distance actually come from the Cyberpunk Edgerunner poster. They have that kind of graphic quality to it, so it does feel very kind of like futuristic, which I liked as well. Also, the fashion in that show is just so top tier. I really wanted to make sure that I gave Belle this really cute outfit and actually colored it pink, which sort of breaks this like red-blue dynamic a little bit, but I just felt like he looked super cute in pink. Sorry, not sorry, breaking my own rules because I make them. There were a lot of sort of complex emotions and concepts to come across in this one image, but I'm really proud with how it turned out, and I think it does a really good job sort of conveying all of that. And not to toot my own horn, but I think it looks really good. Like, I feel like it looks like it's from the frame of an anime or something. I don't know, it's so cute. It was a little tricky having the projector light not completely cover up all this work that I did on the hair and have it still read as like a hologram, but after a while I kind of get in my groove and I figure it out, and that's by making it more blue. And then that gave me the idea to kind of like add all of these really beautiful yellow rim lighting on everyone. And yeah, it's just like clockwork after that. I really like how this image turned out. And I think the last thing I really do is add the shadows to really ground all of the real live characters in place. And I add this like beautiful little glowing effect on Ari's cheeks where I put these weird little cybernetic things. And I gave him some glow in his eyes too, because it looks cute. And I could not be happier, but I would be lying if I told you that it didn't make me really nervous to do the other ones. So I decided to really shift gears for our next genre. Genre 2, contemporary fantasy, aka magical girls. If you've watched enough of my videos, it's no secret that I love magical girls. I think they're neat, and I will not apologize for it. So when I was doing this epic fantasy in the original, I really wanted to like see these characters in a contemporary fantasy, and that was sort of the driving force of this whole video idea. My aesthetic compass for this one was Lore Olympus, because I feel like that webcomic does a really good job blending the fantastical, magical elements of the gods with a modern city. At least when you're in Olympus and the underworld, it's modern. The mortal realm is still in the past. But putting that like detail aside, I just really loved that comic and that style. So I was trying to go with those vibes and like a semi-lineless style. Rachel Smythe does use a lot of lines, but she typically doesn't do an outline. She favors bold colors and bold shapes, and then a very gestural, loose background. And that's right up my alley. For the contemporary fantasy, you'll learn very quickly that this is much less story-driven and much more aesthetics-driven. Like, I really wanted to capture the feel of scrolling on a webtoon, so everything's simple and quick, because when you're doing an internet comic, you only want to give so much attention to the panels. You want to do the most with the least as possible, because you're producing so many illustrations at once. And that was a very unique challenge in and of itself, because how do you convey these characters but in a simplified style that's easier to reproduce over and over again for like a webtoon's format? And I also just wanted to draw them in a cute magical girl form. Like, they're my boys, but they deserve to be magical girls too. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying. You're cool. You can hang around. You understand what I'm saying. So I want to draw them in their magical forms, but in a vaguely Central Park style garden. Park? I don't know. I just wanted to have like pink flowers on trees, and then in the distance you see skyscrapers, so you're like, oh yeah, we're in the modern world, but we're in a very romantic place. One of my favorite magical girl series is actually Cardcaptor Sakura, And because of that, I went with the theme of tarot cards to sort of be the magic system for this illustration. Whereas in Cardcaptor Sakura, she's basically like using this fictional tarot deck that doesn't actually exist and is more akin to what we call oracle decks. I wanted to use traditional tarot, and I picked 2 cards that reflect Belle's and Ari's personalities because every card has a different meaning. And yeah, I was really proud with the ones that I chose because I do have a tarot deck and I'm a bit of a taromancer myself. I'm not too woo-woo with it, but it is really fun to do at parties and stuff. So yeah, I chose 2 cards from the minor arcana, which you don't see a lot in media. Most of the time you see cards from the major arcana, which are like the Fool, or the Empress, or the Hierophant, or the Lovers, or Death. But there are also these things called the minor arcana, which are like more akin to regular playing cards. So instead of hearts, diamonds, clubs, and spades, it's cups, swords, wands, and pentacles. Don't worry, there's not going to be a test over this. I'm just being a nerd. But yeah, I based Belle's design off of the card 3 of Swords, which is a pretty famous card even for being a minor arcana. It's a heart with 3 swords stabbing it, and I felt like this was appropriate for his character because one, each of the suits are associated with an element, and swords are associated with the element of air, which I felt just really matched his personality. He's always like flighty and fast and going and quick. So that was very appropriate. But then also, it's a card that's about sorrow and having a broken heart. And it's just really sappy, but I liked the idea of him being a magical boy that is like a champion for the people who have broken hearts or are sorrowful. And then for Ari, I gave him the 2 of Pentacles, which is a really cool card and is much more obscure, but it basically depicts a juggler who's juggling these 2 gold coins that have a star on them. Pentacles element is earth, so they're typically very dependable and reliable and practical, which are all super Ari. But I imagine that this scenario is rivals to lovers, and they're both magical boys that are supposed to save the world, but they're very competitive about it. And I just think that's really cute that they have this rivalry in this world. It's a little different from, of course, one of them literally trying to murder the other one. So yeah, I just like that different vibe for them, and I'm really proud with how this came out. I think I did a good job sort of staying true to my own style, like interpretation of Lore Olympus, and yeah, I think the background is so fun. I absolutely adore it. It's accomplishing everything that I set out for it to accomplish. Ooh, also, Ari's fighting style is that he has these 2 pentacle things that are like Axel from Kingdom Hearts. He uses these weird things that he throws that are round and spiky, and I don't know what they're called, but that's what Ari fights with, and I think that's neat. Genre 3, romance, aka high school AU. That's right, it's your favorite characters, again, but this time they're younger and in high school. And there's no magic or science or anything like that, just a real world private Catholic school, and your boys are there in uniform or dress code. Let's go. This one is, very vibe focused. It's not story or aesthetic. Just that feeling of, ooh, we're both gay and we're in this Catholic school, so we're not allowed to be gay and we're young. I wanted the aesthetic to be kind of reminiscent of 90s anime, but no one in particular. Like, I do it at sunset, so it has these beautiful oranges and purples. At the very end, I do give Ari sort of these bright orange eyes, and he looks a little evil, and do I regret that? Maybe slightly, but ultimately, I think the vibes are very apparent. It was also really fun to just draw the characters younger, so obviously Ari, I gave him shorter hair that would be in dress code, but also, like, he's less bulky because, he hasn't lived long enough to build up that muscle yet. Yeah, Bella's still a short king. We love him. He's so cute. And I love drawing him in this like Catholic schoolboy uniform. It's just really cute and are very reminiscent of like Sailor Moon's school uniforms, which is really fun. I also feel like the point of this image was to really focus on Ari, because I think image 1 was more so Belle focused. I was really interested at us not being privy to the expression on Belle's face, so we don't know how he feels towards Ari. But Ari has this like well of emotion. There is this sort of like tension between the two. I imagine that in this version of the story, it's like friends to lovers, but maybe like childhood friends to lovers, where they were friends maybe in elementary school, but they went to different middle schools and now they're in high school together. So it's like this strange thing where the last time we knew each other, we were children and we would play together at recess. And now we've both gone through puberty and we're thrown sort of back into each other's lives. And I just think there's a lot of fun, very grounded human experiences, specifically like queer experiences, that would be explored in this version of their story. And it's also sort of like high school AU is the most popular fan fiction category that I know of, at least. So it's sort of like making fan art of your own characters, even though you haven't settled on a genre for them yet. I don't know. I think that's really cool to be like the first one to draw them in their high school AU forms. And no one can take that away from me. The background was very simple, but I think good and appropriate. It has the right level of atmosphericness. I love that I obscured the name of the school a little bit, but I imagine it's just Sacred Heart High School. And, I added a bus because buses are there, and it's very clearly evening. So I imagine that they're either coming from some sort of after-school activity. I imagine Belle is doing something more academic, like a debate team or something like that. And Ari is coming from some sport. I'm not sure which one, but one of them, maybe all of them. Who knows? He's very tall. Also, one of my favorite movies is Lady Bird by Greta Gerwig. I adore that movie, and it's really interesting because it's also set at a Catholic high school, but it's like the boys and girls are separated, and it's just a really interesting place to set a story because, of course, there are all these rules, but there are so many different reasons why people attend a Catholic high school. For example, Ari and his family, I imagine, are of like Middle Eastern descent, and I don't think they're Catholic at all, but I like to imagine that the reason why he's in this particular high school is because the public schools are really, really unsafe. Like in the Lady Bird movie, her parents are like, we had to send you to the private school because your brother saw someone knifed in front of him at the public school. So I just like that idea and sort of the narrative of this isn't my religion, but I have to attend this place because of safety, and it's maybe the only private school nearest to their house that's in their price range. So yeah, I just thought that was really interesting. And then in this universe, I would imagine Belle's family is probably super Catholic, like omega religious, and so he probably has a lot of internalized homophobia that he's dealing with. Just getting straight into the nitty-gritty human life experiences with this one. Whereas the contemporary fantasy magical girls were all fluff, this one is much more angst. As any good fanfiction should be, so big fan of this one as well. Genre 4, mystery, aka detective. I grew up watching Monk and Psych, and very recently I just binged Poker Face. And these are all TV detectives, very much like Sherlock Holmes. So it goes without being said, I love a detective. It is so great. So my aesthetics that I was kind of going for was like Sherlock Hound, and then also the Great Mouse Detectives. So the style is just a little bit more cartoony, a little bit more Ghibli/Disney in vibes, and I think it came out really well. I tried to combine both the living rooms from the Great Mouse Detectives and Sherlock Hound, and I think it came out pretty good by the end of it. I also end up making Ari much more fluffy because he's sort of fulfilling the Watson role inside their dynamic, but I also just wanted an excuse to make him look a little more like the baker from Kiki's Delivery Service, which was certainly my gay awakening. You're welcome. I also love the opportunity of just drawing them super dapper. Originally, I was thinking this was going to be kind of Victorian times, but then the more that I drew it, I was sort of having difficulty with Ari's outfit. and he looks more like he's from 60s mod style than Victorian England, so it's sort of up in the air when this era is. I also found the idea of people calling Bell Mr. Bell or Detective Bell really funny to me. I don't know why, because that's like his last name. If this actually existed in the world as media, I would want it to be a serialized TV show like the ones I listed at the very beginning of this chapter, where every week there's a different episode where they're solving a different mystery that's either a disappearance or something was stolen, but most often it's a murder. What I depict here is what I imagine to be their first meeting. So in episode 1, it would be strangers to lovers, where Ari has come to Detective Bell to ask for help in some sort of murder mystery that he has found himself caught up in. And yeah, I just wanted to draw both of them in Detective Bell's living room holding these papers that Ari had brought, and Bell is like investigating them kind of with a magnifying glass, and Ari's just sort of like leaning over him and pointing at different things. I don't know if this is a clue, but I just really liked that mental image. And then over the course of solving this first mystery, they get like bonded together, and like Watson does with Sherlock, Ari's like, well, I guess I'm just a detective's assistant now. And they like go into business together and they move in, and it's super cute and wholesome and gay, and I love it. Also, I thought the character designs were going to be the end of me, but I was wrong. Trying to do a background in the style of Detective Hound or Disney is much harder. So I go through a lot of steps to make this look good, and I use a lot of textures just so it really feels painterly. I use like a special brush, and I even took the time to go to Google and find public domain Victorian wallpaper to use on the walls. Like, I went all out for this. And I think it definitely paid off. Like, by the end of it, I went from being really scared to like immensely proud, because I feel like this background is so good. I think it's the strongest of all the backgrounds that I've done today. But I think every background was perfectly appropriate for the vibe or the aesthetic of each section. So, you know, sometimes when you're recreating a style that's based off of a studio that has a huge production budget, you know, it's gonna take a little more time. And I think it shows, and I'm very, very happy that I had all of those wonderful references to look at when I was doing this, and I think I learned a lot from it too. I also just think it's so funny that Ari has this little monocle. Like, what is it hooked to? I'm not sure, but it's there and it's on this gold chain. It's just really absurd, but I don't regret any of these fashions. I think they're great. And also, there's another poetic justice of like, in the first genre, Ari is literally paid to kill Belle, and in this genre, Ari is coming to Belle for help because Belle is the expert, and Ari is just like this really wholesome guy who's been caught up in a murder investigation. How the tables turns. That's completely insane. Full circle moment there. Also for like the paintings on the walls, I just found some old paintings and I pasted them in here. I think one of them is the swing, which is like Rococo times, but I sort of just used a blur tool to sort of like make them a little more fit in and not stand out with the background, and I put some overlay layers in there as well. And then the last thing I do is I finish up the lighting on both Ari and Belle, and yeah, I think that's pretty much the end of it. I'm so glad that I ended this on a high note. I think by far this is my favorite composition. I just really love the light of like the window shining on the back wall and how that sort of brings the eye down to the focal point, which is Ari, of course, and Belle looking at this clue. I just think it was really well done and I'm very proud of it. And that's it. That was all 4 genres. We did it. Oh my gosh. I'm so proud of us. There's only one thing left to ask. Which was your favorite genre? I feel like it's almost hard to compare them all because they're so different, but I know how the internet works. You all have an opinion, and it would be really great if you commented down below what your opinions are. I would love to read them and just like to hear what you thought of these characters. and I hope you love them as much as I do. And while you're down there, feel free to like and subscribe and ring the little bell. I make a lot of content like this where I sort of just talk about my own designs and stories, but I also make a lot of Drawfee fan art videos. We have a fun time here, and if you really want to support the channel, go to my description and click the link to my Patreon, where for just like $4 a month, you can have your name in the end credits. Wouldn't that be so cool? And then I could do this full time and just make endless content for you to enjoy. I used to make 2 videos a week, but now because of financial strains, I can only do 1 video every Saturday, which I'm super freaking grateful for, but any penny really does help support me and the channel happen. And, you know, the more you guys want to see, I would love to provide that for you. For just $2, that gives you access to be able to like leave comments and make recommendations for what characters you want to see in the background of some of my illustrations. But if you can't, just subscribing and liking and commenting really does make a huge amount of difference. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you all so much. And with all that being said, I guess there's nothing left to do except for the end credits. Special thanks to Blurryface EXE, Blue Ubu, Christopher, MOE, Game of Catan on IG, Gay Jarrus, Melon, Pinecone, Prance, Smalls the Sax Jammer, Shenanigans, Thumper Daytime, Tarthalinor, Tuesdays Anyways, and Tuppence Pies. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Nathan. I upload every Saturday, and I'll see you soon. Bye!